Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. It is another Premier League predictions video that we've got in store for you today. The games really are coming thick and fast, and it's another weekend ahead of some massive and big Premier League fixtures as the season really continues to take shape going forward as the World Cup edges ever closer, which means that World Cup break is getting ever closer as well. Before we go into talking about all the upcoming games of this upcoming round of Premier League fixtures this weekend, and obviously predicting each and every single game's outcome, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things will always and probably greatly appreciated. But for now, let's get into the predictions. Alright, first up, we are at the City Ground for Saturday's lunchtime game. It is Nottingham Forest taking on Liverpool. It is a Nottingham Forest side that are at the bottom of the table. It's a Nottingham Forest side that last time out managed to just about survive a Brighton onslaught in a goalless draw between them and the Seagulls. Whilst for Liverpool, they made it back-to-back wins with a 1-0 victory over West Ham midweek and are looking to make it 3 wins on the bounce for the Reds as this mini resurrection, it seems, really begins. Have I just spoken too soon? On paper, it's hard to see anything other than a Liverpool victory in this game, but anything can obviously happen, and with it being a lunchtime game as well, that type of game on a lunchtime on a Saturday does seem to be a little bit cursed. But like I say, I think this will be Liverpool's 3rd win on the bounce. I can't really see it going anywhere else, and I hope I'm not speaking too soon on that, and I hope I'm not going to take a massive L at the end of this and that Forest will get their 2nd win of the season. I'm hoping that that's not the case. I'm hoping that Liverpool see the job through professionally. I'm hoping Liverpool will see the job through completely in its entirety. I'm hoping that Liverpool, with the form of the likes of Roberto Firmino, Mohamed Salah and Darwin Núñez, who seems to be warming up to the Premier League and gaining more and more confidence with each passing game. I'm hoping that all of those 3 and so many more, of course, including obviously even Alisson Becker in the Liverpool goal, who's been outstanding this season, will get the job done. Forest might fancy their chances on the counter-attack. If Liverpool play the high line, they may get a bit more space in behind than what they used to. But can they keep out the likes of Salah, Firmino, Núñez and whoever else, and Harvey Elliott and Fabio Carvalho and whoever else Liverpool have got up front at their disposal? That is going to be the big question. Might still be a bit of a tough game. Never necessarily a foregone conclusion, but I think the likelihood obviously is a Liverpool win. That is what I'm going for. I'm going to say 3-0 to Jurgen Klopp's side. Next up, we're at Goodison Park. It is Everton at home taking on Crystal Palace. Big game in prospect for both sides on 3 o'clock on Saturday. Of course, you've got Everton, who are looking to get back to winning ways following a 1-0 defeat to Newcastle in their clash midweek, whilst Palace were 2-1 winners against Wolves, having to come from behind on that day to win. So they're looking to make it back-to-back wins in this fixture. Very intriguing game. You've got Everton, of course, who, like I say, probably, if they could find a more consistent enough goal scorer up front, might actually have a few more points in the bag than what they already have against the Palace side that plays some really good football, and again may have struggled to put the ball in the back of the net at certain key parts of this season already to really have accumulated more points than what they have already within their grasp, obviously. Intriguing game though. Palace will like to get the ball down and play some nice and attractive football. Everton may look to try and hit them on the counter-attack. It's going to be an intriguing game, contrast between both sides. Some good individuals on display, particularly on the Palace side. Could be a very interesting game of football, and I think that the result I'm going to go for, as much as I can probably see this game ending in a draw, especially with Everton being at home, they've got a decent home record, or decent enough home record in comparison to their away record. A draw certainly isn't out of the realm of the possibility, but Palace will make it difficult. Palace will play some good football, and that is why I can see Palace nicking this one. And I think that with the kind of form they're in, I reckon Palace will get the 3 points. Which is why I'm going to say that this game will end 2-1 to the away side. Next up, we are at the Etihad Stadium. It is Manchester City taking on Brighton. This one could be interesting. You've got Manchester City, of course, who had a bit of a break from their midweek clash. They were meant to be playing Arsenal, but because of Arsenal's rearranged Europa League fixture, it meant that they've had a few extra days to recover, whilst Brighton, of course, endured that extremely frustrating 0-0 draw with Nottingham Forest that has probably resulted in Brighton really trying to sharpen up on their shooting drills this past few days in training. Look, City, of course, last time we saw them in action was against Liverpool on Sunday. They lost 1-0 on that day. They'll be looking to get back to winning ways, and I'm sure that Pep Guardiola would have been extremely frustrated all week. He may have even been frustrated that the Arsenal game was cancelled, because I'm sure that he would have liked to have got back on the pitch as soon as possible to try and write off that defeat as just a bit of a one-off. And yes, it very well could be, but of course he's had to wait a few extra days for that. I'm sure Erling Haaland is chomping at the bit to get once again back on the score sheet. I'm sure that the Manchester City squad have been put through their paces and their drills this week to try and rectify that defeat to Liverpool. And I think Brighton might just be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like we've seen with Brighton over the past couple of results, the chances are there. The accuracy, the consistency just isn't. Like I say, we saw that on Tuesday night against Forest. They had all the possession, they had all the chances, but yet somehow, some way, somehow, they only managed to come away with that game with a point. And now they turn their attention to City, who aren't invincible, they aren't impenetrable. Like I say, City's defence has been shown to be quite vulnerable at times, not just by Liverpool on Sunday, but by other teams as well. Newcastle managed to score 3 goals against them. Man United managed to score 3 goals against them. So there are going to be chances there for Brighton. It's whether or not they'll take them, and whether or not they can keep out the likes of Haaland, De Bruyne, Foden, and whoever else Manchester City have got at their disposal at the other end. And that's easier said than done, of course it is. But it's going to make for an interesting game nonetheless. Two teams who would like to get the ball down, play some nice football. Both have weaknesses, both have strengths. It's going to be a very intriguing battle at 3 o'clock on Saturday. But I do fear for Brighton. I do fear for Brighton that they're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. A annoyed and very frustrated Pep Guardiola has probably drilled into this Manchester City squad over this past week or so. So that is why I am going to be going for a Manchester City victory and say that Pep Guardiola's side come out of this one as 3-1 winners. Next up, we're jumping ahead to Aston Villa's clash with Brentford on Sunday at Villa Park, the first game in the post-Steven Gerrard era after he was sacked following, obviously, Villa's latest defeat, which was a 3-0 loss to Fulham on Thursday night. It'll be interesting to see how the Villa players recover from that defeat and obviously deal with the loss of their manager, Steven Gerrard. As for Brentford, of course, they're going pretty well right now. A couple of good results in the past few games. Obviously, their latest was a 0-0 draw with informed Chelsea, so that was a very good result for them as well. But now they face a away task, which is made a little bit more difficult with obviously the unknown entity of an interim manager for at least the time being, or a caretaker manager, or however else you want to put it. Taking charge of this game for Aston Villa in the opposite dugout. It's going to be very intriguing. Brentford, obviously, as we know, very difficult to beat on their day. Obviously, I think they're better at home than they are away. So that could be a bit of that could be something for Villa to kind of to hold on to a little bit. But if Brentford turn up, if they're in the mood, if they've got their passing game on point, if they are going to be fast, if they're going to be pressing, then they definitely can hurt Aston Villa, and they could add even more doom and gloom onto Aston Villa and their supporters. But for Villa, they have the squad to cause problems, and I've said this constantly throughout Gerrard's reign. They have the squad to definitely cause opposition problems. and it's just whether or not they decide to use it, whether or not they turn up on their day, whether they're going to try and impress a potential new manager or whatever it may be. That's going to have to be taken into account as well. So it does kind of throw this a little bit out there, because obviously the unknown entity of a caretaker manager. Brentford arguably should win this on paper, especially with the form they're in right now, and the players that they've got. I just see this maybe going as a draw. Brentford away, a little bit more difficult for them. Unknown entity element. I just think that this could possibly end in a draw. Wouldn't be surprised if Brentford go on and win the game. I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to say that this game will end 1-1 come the final whistle. Next up, we're at an intriguing game at Ellen Road as Leeds host Fulham. Obviously, Leeds definitely need the points in this one. They are on a rotting, horrible streak right now. No win in their last 7 games. And their latest result was obviously a 2-0 defeat against Leicester. Definitely need to get back to winning ways and get some points under their belt at some point. Fulham, on the other hand, will be riding high still from that 3-0 victory over Aston Villa that they picked up on Thursday. Fulham finally got back to winning ways in the Premier League and will be looking to make it back-to-back wins here. And they've got good reason to go into this game with a good feeling of back-to-back wins. Like I say, Leeds have not won a game in their last 7 games since that incredible 3-0 victory against Chelsea. Leeds have just been very poor since then, defensively all over the place, a bit leaky, not scoring enough goals. Definitely need to get something going for them at some point, and maybe a home game will help with that. Maybe a home game against a team that they might even fancy their chances in themselves. It's not like it's not a massively difficult challenge. It's not like Manchester City are coming in, or Arsenal, or Liverpool, or anything, or Man United, or whoever. It's Fulham, a team that can be beaten, have proven that they are vulnerable at times. This could be an interesting game, and it could be a game in which to get the crowd really riled up and hostile and excited and everything, and in order to try and generate some sort of win from the backing of the crowd of a big home game in prospect for Leeds United. However, in saying that, I've got to go with the team that's more in form. I've got to go with Fulham. And say that Fulham come out of this game as 2-1 winners. Next up, we're at St Mary's. Big game in prospect here as Southampton take on the league leaders Arsenal in a big game on Sunday. Southampton, of course, will be looking to make it back-to-back wins following their 1-0 win over Bournemouth in midweek, whilst Arsenal will be looking to at the very least maintain their 4-point gap at the top of the table. They obviously are sitting comfortably at the top of the table, 4 points clear of second place Manchester City, and obviously they can they'll be looking to maintain that and maybe even extend it depending on what Manchester City and Tottenham do this weekend. Look, very intriguing game, and it's intriguing for a couple of reasons. Mainly because Southampton tend to do well in these types of games where you're not expecting them to win. Let's face it, the likelihood result here is that Arsenal go on and win this game. Southampton tend to surprise a few people in games where they are considered the major underdog, so that's intriguing in itself. And secondly, St Mary's, Southampton being at home against Arsenal, it's always been a bit of a difficult fixture for Arsenal in recent history, and I don't know why. Again, it could be something to do with the fact that Southampton tend to turn up in these types of fixtures, but it's another big challenge for Arsenal. It's another big challenge for them to overcome. They just about scraped through last week against Leeds. They'll be hoping that that doesn't become a regular occurrence, but I think that days of training, days to recuperate and to refocus and everything. I know they had the Europa League game midweek, and that was a bit tough for them as well. I think Arsenal will get the job done here, and I think they will at least maintain their 4-point gap at the top of the table. And that is why I'm going to go for a 2-0 Arsenal win. Next up, we're at Molineux for a Midlands clash between Wolves and Leicester. Wolves, of course, lost 2-1 to Crystal Palace on Tuesday night, whilst Leicester managed to get another win under their belt with a 2-0 victory over Leeds on Thursday to lift them off the bottom of the table. Intriguing game. You've got Wolves who have decided, well, not really decided, been forced to kind of stick with Steve Davis as their interim manager. You've got Leicester, of course, who are still in pretty hot water despite that win. It will relieve some pressure and may give Brendan Rodgers some borrowed time, but they really need to capitalise and build on that from here. They can make it back-to-back wins, and they'll be certainly fancying their chances against the Wolves side, who very much struggle to score goals and very much struggle to defend as well. They are in a pretty poor state right now, and Leicester will be fancying their chances, and they've got some good players and some dangerous players at that can definitely hurt this Wolves back line. And I think overall that's why I'm going to go for Leicester. I think that they have the edge in quality. I think they just about have the edge in form. And I think that they'll get the 3 points in this game. And I think that they'll play the better football. And they will get the win. And that's why I'm going to go for a 2-1 win in favour of the Foxes. Next up, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium plays host to Tottenham, surprisingly, against Newcastle. This one could be a very, very, very intriguing game, to say the least. Tottenham, of course, want to get back to winning ways following that pretty poor performance midweek against Manchester United, in which Antonio Conte's side lost 2-0 on that day, whilst Newcastle, of course, have picked up some very fine form in recent games, and obviously last time out managed to win against Everton by a goal to nil. Look, this one's going to be intriguing. You've got Antonio Conte's side, who will like to sit back, be proactive, just be progressive, and to try and hit a Newcastle side that like to get the ball down and play some nice attractive football at times on the counter-attack. You've got match winners on both sides. Miguel Almiron is in inspired form right now for the Magpies. He'll be looking to once again get back on the score sheet. You've got obviously the usual suspects for Tottenham in Harry Kane and Son Heung-min, to say the least. You've also got the likes of Bruno Guimaraes on the Newcastle side. You've got obviously Bentancur and Højbjerg for Spurs. It's going to be a very intriguing battle. It's going to be interesting to see how this game goes. Spurs at home, you'd hope that they would take the kind of advantage and the kind of initiative, I guess you'd say, with being the home side and everything. But Newcastle, they've proven that they are strong. They are very, very strong, and they're only going to be continuing to get stronger and to continue to build as time progresses. And again, this is another big task for Newcastle. It's going to see how far they've come under their manager Eddie Howe, and it's going to be a big test for Antonio Conte and for Tottenham to see how far they've come together as a unit. With that being said, the result for this one could genuinely go any which way. Spurs could nick it. It could end in a draw because both sides could be evenly matched. Newcastle could go on to stun Spurs a little bit. I think the likelihood result is obviously when you've got match winners like Son and Kane, Spurs will probably have the bigger percentage of possibly winning this one, and understandably so. But I reckon Newcastle will get something out of this, and that is why I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to call it down the middle, and I'm going to say that this game will end 2-2 come the final whistle. Our penultimate game on this list comes on Monday night when West Ham take on Bournemouth at the London Stadium. West Ham, of course, lost 1-0 to Liverpool midweek, whilst Bournemouth lost 1-0 also midweek against Southampton. So both sides will be looking to get back to winning ways in this fixture. It's a big game for both sides. West Ham, of course, have been rather hit and miss all season, rather inconsistent, not shown the consistency that they have shown in previous seasons under David Moyes. Whilst Bournemouth, of course, kind of went a little bit under the radar before the Southampton game. Picked up a couple of good results here and there, started to climb up the table a little bit. Rather surprised a couple of people, I guess you'd say. But then came a bit of a reality check with a loss to Southampton, and this one, like I say, could be very interesting. Bournemouth at home, West Ham at home, Bournemouth away. Intriguing. You would expect maybe West Ham to have the bigger quality, the better quality, but that isn't to say that you should write off Bournemouth by any means. They could definitely still nick something from this game against the West Ham side, who, like I say, have been rather hit and miss for the majority of this season. As far as a prediction goes, I would suspect West Ham get back to winning ways. They were, I guess you could say, a little bit unfortunate not to get anything out of the Liverpool game. They had a couple of decent opportunities to do so. The penalty miss, the James Milner block, and obviously in their previous game before that, I think they drew that one, and again, they were rather unfortunate in that one a little bit. They just couldn't finish off their chances. I'm going to go for a West Ham win. I'm going to say that West Ham get back to winning ways in this game, and I'm going to say that the Hammers come out of this as 2-1 winners. And finally, it is what I believe to be the biggest game of this round of fixtures, the biggest highlight of this upcoming round of fixtures in the Premier League. It is blue versus red at Stamford Bridge as Chelsea host Manchester United. Graham Potter and Eric Ten Hag lock horns in this one. It is going to be a big game in prospect Saturday evening between these two big sides. A historical Premier League clash in prospect here. Obviously, in this game, Chelsea come into this game off the back of a 0-0 draw with Brentford midweek, whilst United come into this game off the back of a big win against Spurs midweek, as they managed to beat Antonio Conte's side by 2-0. This one's going to be an interesting clash. This one's going to really tell how far both sides have come under their respective managers, how far they come under their new managers, shall we say. Chelsea, of course, I think will take the initiative, being the home team. Graham Potter will tell his side to just go out there and play nice and attractive football as they normally do, take the initiative, retain the ball as much as possible, and it's going to be up to Manchester United to try and combat that. And obviously, as we've seen with United, as the season's progressed, they've become much more of a pressing team. They're seemingly getting it more and more as the games go on. They're seemingly growing in confidence, growing in understanding as to what Eric Ten Hag is trying to implement on this squad. And we've seen that at times during the season. We've seen it in the big games especially, and I wouldn't be surprised if, obviously being away from home, we see a bit more of that kind of thing happen again, like we saw with United against Arsenal, like we saw with United against Liverpool, like we saw with United against Spurs. They kind of allow the opposition to have the ball in areas that are seemingly not completely harmless, but less dangerous, shall we say, and then they press, and they press, and they press, and they press, and they try and win the ball back, and when they do, or if they do, they launch a counter-attack. And if Marcus Rashford can sort out his shooting boots and can actually start hitting the back of the net from time to time, then I think Man United will actually have a decent evening in prospect going into this game. Chelsea, of course, will have the likes of Kai Havertz, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Mason Mount available to them. That will be dangerous and ones to watch, whilst United will, of course, have Marcus Rashford, like I say. But Bruno Fernandes also scored midweek. Can he build upon that performance and that goal? And obviously Anthony is there as well, who's properly hit the ground running since his arrival at Old Trafford. Ronaldo will not be there for obvious reasons following his antics midweek, but I don't think he will be missed that much by United. And like I said, I think that this could be a very intriguing game in prospect, a very intriguing tactical battle between these two managers, and just a very intriguing physical and stamina-based battle in the middle of the park as well. Intriguing to me. I'm looking forward to seeing this one from a bit of a neutral perspective. But as far as a prediction goes, Look, I think before midweek I was probably favouring Chelsea. I was probably leaning more towards Chelsea, and then after seeing United's performance midweek, after seeing Chelsea slightly slip up against Brentford, it's not a terrible result going away to Brentford and getting a draw, but it's not the best either if you're Chelsea. I think that both sides will have to be forced to share the points in this one. So that is why I'm going to go for a draw, and I'm going to say that this game will end 2-2 come the final whistle. But of course, as I always say, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of all the games coming up this weekend in the upcoming round of another round of Premier League fixtures? What are your own thoughts, your comments, opinions? But most of all, of course, because this is a prediction show, what are your predictions on all of the Premier League games coming up this weekend? Fantasy football managers, who do you see having a good week? Who do you see having a bad week? Who are you putting into your squad? Who are you taking out of your squad? That could also make interesting reading as well down below in the comment section. But most of all, of course, I'm after your predictions on all the games that are coming up this weekend. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way up if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things are always incredibly greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Premier League prediction show, and I will see you all again soon in another video.